everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Tuesday. It is May 21st. It is 2024. I almost said 23. We have an 8-game MLB slate to talk about here on Tuesday. Very interesting 8-game slate. We're used to like 15, 13, 12 type of games here on Tuesdays. So Keith gets an easy one here today. Joined today by my good buddy Keith Eys819. Keith, what's happening, my friend?
Not too much. Been a bit of a rough day for me. Was on Grinders Live earlier. My internet was not holding up for me whatsoever, so I had to bail on that. Ended up with way too much Pablo Lopez. Had some Joe Ross as well. So it's been a bit of a rough Monday for me, but that's all right. We're back here to rebound on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's what we're here to do. So I was telling Keith before the show that like Mondays are my day off from RotoGrinders. Like it's the only day off I have during the week because of like my NASCAR schedule. And I still technically work because I do the podcast and I do the podcast like tonight, but I don't have like premium content. So like I ended up taking the day off. I had some bets out there that I hit a few of them already. I had Tanner Houch, his over, I think it was like 16 and a half outs. So he did well with that. I had Taj Bradley strikeout prop. He hit that. Had Stroman strikeout prop, which we talked about on the podcast last night. Was it 4.5 or 5.5 or something? And I think he had 6 strikeouts. So I missed on the Kramer bet, and I would have been very high on Dean Kramer in my builds had I played a lot today. So I'm kind of glad that I took the day off. But I mean, some of the guys that we talked about last night did really well. Tanner Houch did really well. Bradley had 10 strikeouts. He had a fantastic game outside of giving up some runs. And yeah, hope everyone's having a fantastic Monday night. And we're here to talk some baseball, get it back going here, get Keith back on track. That's the goal today, right? Get Keith back on track. So what a slate to do it. Like this is an interesting one. I can't wait to talk about this one. And the Kansas City Royals kind of got there because Olsen got hurt. So I would like that kind of stunk. Hopefully Olsen's okay. Don't ever want to see anybody get hurt. The Angels, man, what the heck? 13 hits, 9 runs. Framber Valdez after that dominant game. Rough. What an interesting Monday. If you're winning money on Monday, congrats. What a slate. I mean, I bet you see some really interesting teams take down tournaments on Monday. So, all right. Monday's passed. We're on a Tuesday. What's up, YouTube? A lot of people hanging out on YouTube. Not going to break it all down, but what's up, YouTube? Seattle at New York. We got an 8 total in this game. Yankees a 166 favorite. Wu and Schmidt facing off against each other. Any interest here in Brian Wu?
This is a tough spot for Brian Wu. I love him as a pitcher. I think he's a really talented guy. But this Yankees team is pretty tough. The addition of Soto, like they just don't strike out near as much as they used to. They still have all the big power bats. Getting a big ballpark downgrade going from Seattle into New York. So it's a tough spot. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he came out here and threw a decent game, but I don't think that I'll be chasing it on this slate. It's not the best pitching slate in the world, so I don't think you're crazy if you want to try some Brian Wu, but a little bit of a tough spot here. I believe that this Yankees offense is really tough, so I'll probably stay away today.
Yeah, I mean, Gilbert had 1 strikeout?
Yeah,
I think on Monday, like they're not striking out a ton, and it's not like Brian Wu's like this huge strikeout pitcher. He's maybe slightly above average as far as like the strikeout numbers go, but they're just I mean Soto, he's helped a lot. They brought in Verdugo. He doesn't strike out a lot, and then like these like bottom end guys, like they don't have a lot of power, but they're not striking out a ton either. So just not a ton of strikeouts in this lineup overall. It's a tough spot for Wu. He's 8,500. I don't know what his pitch count is going to look like here. You know, if we play the 15 to 20 pitch increase, I mean, maybe he gets to 90, 95 here. I think I'm going to pass on Brian Wu today. Flip side, though, I have a ton of interest in Clark Schmidt. I mean, Seattle is a high strikeout team. Stroman's not a strikeout pitcher, and he was able to have a decent strikeout game. Clark Schmidt has actually been really good, I think, to start the season, despite a couple like games where he gave up 2 or 3 runs. Like he's been consistently pitching good this year. Any interest here in Clark Schmidt?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm basically interested in any pitcher throwing baseballs against Seattle at this point because they're the highest strikeout team in baseball. So, yeah, I'm in. Like you said, Schmidt's been really good. The strikeouts are way up at 27%. The leash looks pretty solid as well. Um, Coming off a great game against Minnesota, very similar matchup. Minnesota and Seattle are both really high strikeout, but there's a lot of power in those lineups. So very similar to the last matchup he just had against Minnesota, where he ended up with 8 strikeouts in 8 innings of shutout baseball. So that's the ceiling here in this spot again. I'm certainly okay chasing that in a very similar matchup here against a high strikeout Mariners team.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yep.
Seattle Bats. Any interest in Mariners here?
I mean, it's Yankee Stadium. It's a nice upgrade for them. They've been below average on the season. And Schmidt's been pretty good as well, like we just talked about. So it's mild interest at best. I think you can try to chase some homers here if you want to, but I'm probably not something I'll do a ton of. Haniger was off to a decent start. That's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. Certainly don't mind Cal Raleigh in this spot. Like I said, the ballpark upgrade should be swinging from the left side here. So certainly don't mind him. Julio is still scuffling along, hasn't quite put it together yet. Definitely no stacks for me. I don't mind trying to chase some home runs here, but it's basically just one-offs for me.
Yeah, I mean he's such a good fastball changeup combination that it's really hard to like pinpoint who you want to attack him with. Like you'd almost have to like dig into some like batted ball profile and stuff and see like who's good against a changeup in this lineup. And like looking at plate IQ, like Luke Raley is decent against changeups, but they strike out even more against changeups than they do. Like, so I mean, it just makes us like Clark Schmidt more in this spot. So it would be power lefties. So like I don't even know if I consider like Luke Raley like a power lefty. But like Cal Riley, Luke Raley would probably be the two that I would take shots on. Canzone maybe. Not going to go out of my way to play Seattle Bats today. Good ballpark upgrade, tough matchup, and they got to face the bullpen too.
Yeah.
Yankees Bats against Woo. I mean, we don't have a ton of interest in Woo per se, but do we have a ton of interest in the Bats against him?
Not really. Like I said, I just fully buy into this guy's talent level. I think he can do a decent job of holding the Yankees down here, but not the best strikeout matchup. So mild interest in Woo, very mild interest in the Yankees bats. Also, I think it'd be another spot where I'm just chasing home runs. Woo's a pretty good control guy. He does give up a few fly balls though. So like you can always play Judge and Stanton. Soto is priced way up. That's the other problem. Like this to stack, you want to get Judge and Soto in there, and they're both over 6K. So against a good pitcher like Woo, I don't think I'm paying for a ton of Yankees bats here. Worth noting, Gleyber Torres' price is all the way down to 3,700. I know it's been a really rough season for him, but he's a better hitter than 3,700. I don't mind chasing a home run there, hoping he breaks out of something. Verdugo's cheap, but yeah, no stacks for me on the Yankees. Same as the Mariners side, just chasing some home runs here maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of interest. Woo is not a guy that typically gives up like a lot of barrels or gets blown up. Power lefties is where you typically get Brian Woo, if anything. That's where he really struggled last season. And Soto is just so expensive. Like I feel like this is a really good spot for him, but it's also like the price. Because like Brian Woo is gonna attack him a little bit here. And I mean, when Juan Soto's getting pitches, he's a guy that can hit against anybody. He just walks so much. If Juan Soto had any kind of wheels where he could steal 50 bases as much as this guy walks, like it'd be wild to watch him play baseball. But I mean, maybe a little bit of Soto, Rizzo, Verdugo playing the splits advantage here against Woo, but I'm not going out of my way to play a lot of Yankees in this spot. Chicago White Sox, Toronto Blue Jays, 8 total. Toronto Blue Jays a 188 favorite here. We got Crochet against Kikuchi, battle of the lefties. Any interest here in Garrett Crochet?
He's expensive against a Toronto team that isn't going to strike out a ton, and they're going to roll out a ton of right-handed hitters against him. I'm struggling to find the upside for him to pay off 9,500. Like I said, it's not the best pitching slate, so I do think he's in play. I don't love this matchup for him with all the righties. and the low strikeout righties at that. So I feel like he struggles to pay off this 9,500 price tag. If he's really low owned, maybe I take some shots on him on a weak pitching slate. But I'm not in love with this spot for Crochet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in love with this spot either. I believe in the strikeout talent more than anything else here. So like if you want to roll the dice a little bit, like Toronto, their strikeouts are, I think they have the lowest strikeout. Yeah, they have the lowest strikeout rate, or second lowest strikeout rate in baseball against left-handed pitching this season. But like they're not a high WRC plus team. They don't have a ton of power against left-handed pitching. I think this is like one of those spots you could just be like, hey, I'm going to play the talent and the ability to strike hitters out and hope that he has a good game here. Because like ceiling wise, we don't have a lot of like high ceiling pitchers on the slate, and like he probably has one of the higher ceilings on the slate. So I think like if you just wanted to take shots on like his overall talent and his ability to throw 100 miles an hour past anybody, I mean, I think that's where you could potentially just take shots. The other side, I mean, I think Kikuchi is one of the best pitchers on the slate. The White Sox they're just dreadful. I mean, that's the nice way to put it. If we search their active roster right now against left-handed pitching, they have a 45 WRC plus. Like league average is around like 105 this season against lefties. They have a 45 WRC plus. They're hitting 176 with a 25% K rate against left-handed pitching this season. Kikuchi 9,300. This is a guy I'm going to have a lot of ownership on today.
Yeah, like you look at the price and it feels like it's a little bit too much up at 9,300, but the matchup and the context of the slate, I'm totally fine with this price. Actually, when I opened up the slate, I was like, I don't know if I want to play Kikuchi for 9,300, but like as you go through these guys, there's not a ton of upside, like you just mentioned in any of these pitchers here today. So I'm okay paying 9,300 for Kikuchi. The White Sox are terrible. I wish there was a few more strikeouts in the lineup, but I do think the addition of Pham and DeYoung being in there, Sheets has struck out a ton as well. If they put him in there lefty. So there's some strikeouts in this lineup. They don't strike out as much as I want them to, but given the slate, I think it's totally fine spot for Kikuchi.
Who do we play like against him? Like that's the problem, right? Like who do you play against Kikuchi, if anybody, here for the White Sox?
Yeah, I mean it's why we have interest in Kikuchi. It's not pretty out there. I will say Tommy Pham has been okay since finding a job here with the White Sox. Andrew Vaughn has not quite lived up to his prospect hype. Eloy Jimenez has been pretty brutal here recently, and he's always been kind of reverse splitsy in the last couple of years. Like this, there's just not a lot of talent here. You could chase a home run with somebody like DeJong. He's always had power against lefties. He just strikes out so much. Like it's boom or bust for sure for a guy like that. I don't think I'm stacking against Kikuchi. He's gotten the walks under control for the most part this season. He's done a really good job with that actually this season. So it's not the same old Kikuchi that we used to stack against because he was giving up a ton of power in addition to a ton of walks. Like he's always had the strikeout stuff, but he's kind of honed down the walks, which makes it a little bit tougher to stack against him. I think I'm just home run hunting against him here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have anything else to add. I just maybe a little bit of Tommy Pham, DeJong, home runner, strikeout, I guess. I don't believe in like the numbers that Mendick has so far this season, but like if Mendick did like hit second or something in this spot, maybe. But if he's hitting ninth, no interest whatsoever. Toronto bats against Crochet. Listen, we like bats on the slate. Don't get me wrong. We're gonna have some bats we like on the slate. Anything here for Toronto?
Nothing that I love, and I just don't like playing Toronto against lefties. Like they don't strike out against lefties at all, but they also don't hit for any power whatsoever. It's just been atrocious. Like Vlad is just hitting way too many ground balls at this point in his career. I don't mind Justin Turner. If you're like, again, this is kind of just picking out home runs. Like Crochet is very talented. I think they're going to strike out more than they're used to in this spot. But I think you can try to find a home run here. Danny Jansen has been awesome against lefties. Turner, like I mentioned, I don't mind. Springer's power has disappeared against lefties over the last like 2 seasons. I think he'll be fine, but it's been a rough go this season. Davis Schneider has been solid against lefties. since the beginning of last year. So again, I'm probably just chasing home runs here.
Yeah, if Schneider hits up towards the top of the order too, you can play him at second base at 4,100 on DK. You can get some. He has some pop. He's like one of the higher strikeout risks, but like when he makes contact, he usually hits it hard. So, I don't necessarily hate him, but I'm not going out of my way to play Toronto today. I like the Justin Turner call throughout his career. He's always been really good against left-handed pitching, but I think this is a spot I prefer Crochet over the Toronto bats. That's just how I feel right now. All right, Atlanta at Chicago, 10.5 total. 10.5 total the night before in Wrigley. We know what we're dealing with here. Atlanta's a 134 favorite. We got Charlie Morton against Javier Assad. I looked it up, 15 to 20 miles an hour blowing out the left center. If you don't know, it is a very wind-sensitive ballpark, Wrigley is. So this is one of those spots where the wind definitely will come into play. Any interest here in Charlie Morton?
In addition to the wind blowing out, you also have both of these starters making back-to-back starts against the same team, which I've never liked that situation for a starting pitcher. Morton was not good against the Cubs last week. He struck out 3 in 3 innings, struck out 4 in 3 innings. Sorry, gave up 4 runs. One of those was unearned, but he had 3 walks as well. So I don't like playing pitchers against the Cubs. There's enough power there. They're kind of middle of the road in strikeouts, and they're a really patient bunch as well. So don't like attacking the Cubs, especially when there's wind blowing out, and Charlie Morton just doesn't have the same type of strikeout stuff that he had, where maybe he could win in this matchup a couple of years ago. Now that he's down to like league average for strikeouts, I think it's a tough spot for him.
Yeah, I'm not playing him. I've went into detail on why I don't like pitchers on back-to-back starts, and the only reason that I had interest in Bradley and Houch on Monday, it was a severe ballpark upgrade going from Fenway to Tampa, and like both of those offenses really struggled this year. So no interest for me in Charlie Morton. Javier Assad's eventually going to stop getting lucky, and like I don't know if he's good or not. The stats say that there's a lot of regression coming. He just pitched really well against this team, just absolutely dominated me because I stacked Atlanta on that slate. And I'm getting revenge because I'm not playing Assad. I'm going to stack Atlanta, and I'm going to take the win game here.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Javier Assad. He is awesome at stranding base runners. I don't know if that's a real skill or if it's complete luck, but he's been doing it for like a year and a half now. So I don't think he's a terrible pitcher, but I think he's closer to league average than the guy that has a 1.49 ERA right now. I know that. So I'm with you. I'm on the Atlanta bats here, just given the wind. As a huge Cubs fan, I'm not sure that Assad can even be anything more than league average. Like you look at the stuff, like he's not an above average strikeout guy. He's okay at producing ground balls, but not elite by any means. Like there's just no like elite skills here. I have no idea why he's so good. So I'm kind of with you that I don't think it's going to continue. Let's stack some Atlanta bats.
I just listen. Kudos to him for doing his thing, and we've seen this at times over the years where like the stats always scream regression, and like he's just getting so much run value on his pitches that like he's just pitching well, like he's keeping the barrels down and he's pitching well, but like he's in the bottom 6% of baseball in whiff percentage. You just can't continue. Like Kyle Hendricks did it for years. Every year, Kyle Hendricks would come up and we'd be like, Kyle Hendricks is going to struggle. He's not going to pitch well. And then all of a sudden, Kyle Hendricks would pitch decent. And it's like all the stats always scream regression. And Kyle Hendricks kept doing his thing. But like, you look at some of the stats for Assad and you're just like, this can't keep happening. I mean, it just can't keep happening. You can't like live on a 91 mile an hour fastball and continue to get this type of run. Like, I'm out on Javier Assad. I love Atlanta in this spot. It's just a phenomenal spot anyway because the wind's blowing out in Wrigley. But yeah, I mean, it's a spot I think we definitely want to play the bats here for the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I have interest no matter who's pitching, if it's in the hitters, if it's a Wrigley win game. So I definitely prefer lefties against Assad. Matt Olson looks amazing. Hasn't been that great of a season for Matt Olson, but this is a legitimately awesome spot for him. Michael Harris at 4,500 is another really attractive option. Albies will be swinging it from the left side in this spot. Is Austin Riley back? He should be, right. I think there's a chance that Austin Riley makes it back today. I thought I saw a tweet that he was expected to be activated, so we'll see. That would be a big boost to this offense as well. But Ozuna has been one of the best hitters in baseball since the beginning of last year, so
okay,
certainly play him.
Since like the middle of last year,
like May of last year,
like the beginning
awful.
of last year, we were like, this guy needs to get a sign, and like he just went on and he hasn't stopped hitting ever since.
Legitimately, since like May 15th of last year, he's up there with the best hitters in baseball. Like he's Mookie Betts level. It's absolutely insane what this guy has done. But yeah, the Braves are great. Stack them up. Cubs bullpen is terrible too. Even if Assad gets 6 clean innings, like the Braves might score 10 in the last 3 innings.
If Assad gets 6 clean innings, I'm going to lose it to him again. Oh man, I love playing pitchers that like the event stats scream regression, but it doesn't always work out. I mean, some pitchers are just better than the stats sometimes. I like the Cubs too. Charlie Morton in this spot. Charlie Morton is hittable. Like we play Charlie Morton from time to time because he's still like a decent real life pitcher, but like it's really hard not to have a ton of interest in him here against the Cubs with the wind blowing out at Wrigley.
Yeah, I like the Cubs bats. They're a little bit behind Atlanta for me, but they're right up there in the top tier today for sure. Morton, like you said, is not as dominant as he once was. The Cubs have plenty of power to take advantage of this win today. Morel is still too cheap for the level of hitter that he is. He offers a little bit of speed as well. Bellinger back healthy now. Suzuki back healthy. Like this is a deep offense again, even with Swanson still on the IL. Not sure. Actually, Swanson's supposed to be activated now that I remember that. Dansby Swanson's 2,800. What are we doing, DraftKings? What are we doing?
Didn't he get activated already? He was activated Monday, right?
Yeah, they were
already activated.
They were off, but yes, they activated him. He will be in the lineup on Tuesday. Dansby Swanson is 2,800. Yikes.
Yeah, if Amaya catches, he's 26. So what's interesting about this game is you could like potentially game stack this game. Potentially game stack this game and not like have to play too many expensive bets because they do have actually like Morel is 45, Harris is 45, Bush is 42. A lot of potential like bats in this lineup that are cheap where like you'll be able to stack and then maybe throw in like Ozuna or Acuna or something, but very, very stackable spot, very stackable game. Detroit at Kansas City, 9 total in this game. Pick'em game, Mize against Marsh. Any interest here in our boy Casey Mize?
I don't. Not until we see the strikeouts come back. I also think that Kansas City's an above average offense. Like they're kind of sitting around league average, and they have been all season. But I think there's talent here. Bobby Witt's like an elite level player. A lot of talent in this Kansas City lineup. Until I see some more strikeouts from Mize, he's tough to roster in DFS. He's cheap, but I don't have much interest in picking on Kansas City.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't have a ton of interest in Kansas City on Monday night is like Olsen has just been a lead at keeping the ball in the ballpark. Mize, on the other hand, you don't necessarily have to worry about that too much. His strikeouts are just really, really concerning. I don't know if he's back to 100% yet. I think that's my biggest concern with him. He's had some really good matchups, like Miami last time out, where they still hit him a little bit. Struggled against this team the last time he faced them. I think he's going to struggle a little bit in this spot. So I'm out on Mize, and I think Detroit's better than people are giving them credit for. I think this lineup is actually decent enough where I don't think I want to play Alec Marsh if he's going to be chalky today, but there's not a lot of options under 8K just in general on this slate. So like, I really do think like he might get some ownership today. And just in my head, it sounds like a terrible idea.
Yeah, I mean, I have interest, but I don't love it if it's chalk. I'm with you on that.
There's no way he's not going to be popular today, Keith. Like the pitching that we have on the slate, the bats that we have on the slate, like I have a hard time not seeing like him get some ownership in this spot.
Yeah, unfortunately I agree with you. He's definitely the best option under 8K. I don't even think that's really debatable. Just given the matchup. He's been really good his last 2 times out as well. The strikeouts have ticked up. Like he's below average on the year, 20.7% strikeouts on the year, but he's had 7 strikeouts in each of his last 2. One of those was against Seattle, who strikes out a ton. The other one against the Angels, who are terrible. So I don't know if it's real or not, but worth noting that he has been finding some strikeouts here recently. So as long as he's not like 40% owned, then I'll have some Alec Marsh. I don't know. We'll see what that ownership looks like, but unfortunately, I think I agree with you. He's probably the chalkier guy under 8K.
And I don't want to like give off the wrong vibes here. Like, I do think he's potentially the best option under that price tag. The biggest thing for me with Alec Marsh is like when he went out he almost missed like 2 weeks. It was really like borderline 2 weeks. And he came back and he was in the upper tier of his velocity again, right? Like he was really struggling with velocity over that stretch of like 5 or 6 games, came back, averaged 94.5, 94.3, and he didn't average 91 or 94, but one time out of those other 2, 4, 5 starts. So 5 starts one time. The first for opening day, he averaged 94 miles an hour on the dot. He did not average 94 again until he came back from the IL, and it's really good to see, right? Like when you're a guy that relies on the fastball, changeup, slider combination, you need the fastball to be doing its thing. So I mean, I think he's the best play under 8K. I just don't know if I want to play chalky Alec Marsh. I'm not saying I'm going to fade him. I don't want that to be the thoughts here. I just think that like if he's chalky, I might be underweight. Or I might be overweight. I mean, I don't want to be. I think Detroit's kind of sneaky good. Like the top half of this lineup's really good. The bottom half of this lineup is awful. Can he beat the top half to get to the bottom half to beat the bottom half? I think is the biggest thing here. What are your thoughts on the Detroit bats?
Yeah, it's kind of what you just mentioned. Like there's some talented hitters here. I think Riley Green's really talented. I think Kerry Carpenter's really talented. Wenzel Perez has been good this season. Mark Canha has been a solid vet all like throughout his career. I mean, at least a league average hitter pretty much every season. Torkelson has big pedigree. He hasn't been as good, but those top 4 hitters or whatever in this lineup have been outstanding this season. So I don't hate it. Like Alec Marsh I don't think he's going to be some dominant pitcher. Stranger things have happened. They're not going to be one of my favorite stacks by any means, but I don't mind a little exposure to Detroit. Probably more of a 3-man, 4-man type of stack, but I will probably have some exposure, at least to Green and Carpenter in particular.
Free money Freddie, baby. Grand slam off Saccone. Dodgers up 5-1. You can't get the bases loaded the Dodgers with no outs. They're going to beat you, which is great because I have Dodgers minus 1.5 from the podcast yesterday. If I like a little bit of leverage, if like Marsh is popular today, a little bit of leverage is like Green, Carpenter, Perez, maybe a little Colt Keith just because he's really cheap. But I really think like Green, Carpenter are like where Marsh could potentially struggle in this spot. And I know Marsh has been better against lefties this year. He was awful against lefties last year. So if we're looking at a larger sample size, lefties is where he really struggled last year. So changeup helps. Kansas City, I think they're stackable today. They're like you said, they're on the verge of being really good. Like it wouldn't shock me if the Royals end up as like a top 5 offense to finish out the season. Like they have so many good hitters throughout this lineup that people won't consider like good hitters. So I kind of like the Kansas City Royals today. Probably more of a main, like a secondary stack, but that's just because I'm going to love the Dodgers again. And I have a weird take on the Colorado Oakland game. I can't wait to talk about that one. But yeah, I mean, I like Kansas City today.
Yeah, I do too. I like Mize is going to keep getting better the further away he gets from this injury, but he's nothing spectacular at this point. Like the walks look really good, but he doesn't miss any bats. He's given up plenty of barrels, like, and a ton of hard contact. So I like this Royal stack a little bit. I agree with you, more of a mini stack. Like I think Witt and Sal Perez are both elite hitters. We know that. I think Pasquantino and even Massey at this point are like really good, at least average, probably a significantly above average major league hitters. So like of those four, like you pick your favorite three, whatever positions you need, and use that as a little mini stack. But yeah, there's a lot of talent in this Kansas City offense. I'm with you. Like I think Fermin and even Melendez can turn into something. Isbell was a pretty decent prospect coming up as well. So just a lot of talented young hitters in this lineup that continue to get better. Like we've like Massey last year, we were waiting for it and it never happened. Kind of same with Pasquantino as well. And now we look at them this year and their numbers look great. And we're like, yeah, they're legitimately good hitters. I think other guys in this lineup like Melendez and Isbell could take steps forward like that. But for today, probably more of a mini stack just because I think Mize is still pretty good, even if he's not the elite guy that maybe he was projected to be.
All right, moving on. We got Baltimore at St. Louis facing the hot Cardinals. 9 total here. Baltimore a 152 favorite. Kyle Bradish, Lance Lynn. Any interest here in Bradish?
I do have some interest in Bradish. The price tag is a little tough to swallow at 8,800, but the St. Louis team, like I know they've been a little bit better here recently, but look at their season-long numbers, and it's just been horrific out there for them. Bradish obviously has not pitched much this season. He did get up to 85 pitches in his last start, 90 in the start before that. So I think he's fully stretched and good to go. It's not a strong pitching slate. So while I don't think it's the highest of upside spots, I think he can put up a decent outing here at 8,800 and be totally fine.
Yeah, I think he's fine. I think that's just basically what it is. He's just fine. He has shown really good ability to get left-handed hitters out this season, which is good when you're facing this team. Like you said, you look at the overall numbers this year, and they've really struggled. I know they've been a little bit better recently. Good for them. They have a lot of talent. This team has a lot of talent. We've been saying it. Like this team shouldn't be as bad as they have been, but on this pitching slate, I think I still prefer like Kikuchi and Schmidt over Bradish, but I do want to get some exposure to Bradish in this spot. Lance Lynn on the other side, no chance, man. No, there's just no chance I'm playing Lance Lynn against Baltimore.
Yeah, Baltimore is scary good. Like their power is off the charts. Gunnar Henderson, who we'll talk about, leading the majors in homers. Good for him. Like what a stud. I'm not playing Lance Lynn against this Baltimore team.
I think Baltimore is my favorite stack pivot off of Houston and the LA Dodgers today. I think you can stack this lineup top to bottom. Lance Lynn has really struggled this year. I think this is an amazing, amazing spot for Baltimore. It's getting hotter in St. Louis too. Like it's just such a good spot for Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I love this Baltimore offense. We've been talking about it since last year, how good and talented. Very similar to what we were just talking about with Kansas City. Like there's just young hitters who are growing into major leaguers. Like it takes time for these hitters to develop. We've seen the massive jump from Gunnar Henderson this year. I mean, he was awesome last year, but now he's like in that elite stratosphere. Their whole lineup is littered with these guys. Colton Cowser's kind of the breakout guy this year as well. Like just top to bottom, this lineup is really talented. Lance Lynn doesn't have much left, and I think Baltimore beats him up today.
I mean, Ryan O'Hearn's still hitting the ball super hard. Cowser's hitting the ball hard. Rutschman's hitting the ball hard. Gunnar Henderson, like you mentioned, he's just been phenomenal. It's really hard not to pay up at shortstop on every single slate right now. It's just shortstop is just so incredibly loaded. Gunnar Henderson has just been phenomenal. So love Baltimore. Like I said, they're one of my top stacks on the entire slate. St. Louis bats against Bradish. Any interest here in the Cardinals?
Not in the stack. I will say Goldschmidt's been turning it on of late, and he's still really cheap because of how awful he was to start the season. 3,900 for Paul Goldschmidt. That's too cheap. Bradish has had a problem with right-handed power in his career, been reverse splitsy. So I don't hate Paul Goldschmidt. Arenado's fine. He's cheap too at 4K. But I think Bradish is an above-average pitcher. I'm not stacking St. Louis.
Yeah, they've been a little bit better. I just don't see him going bonkers in this game, but I could be wrong. Angels at Astros, 9 total. Houston, a huge 196 favorite. Griffin Canning, Christian Javier. Any interest here in Canning?
They are tempting us with this price tag.
They are. They really threw the price tag to really make us like look into it for sure.
I don't play pitchers against Houston in DFS almost ever. Griffin Canning was atrocious to start the season. We knew he was better than what he was pitching. He's turned it on here a little bit late. He's been okay in his last 3 starts. He's 5,500. The guy has a 90 to 100 pitch leash. Can he survive against Houston is the question. Like, he's not going to get a ton of strikeouts, so he has to limit the run prevention. If you think he can do that, he can probably go 6 innings in this spot. And even if he only gets 3 strikeouts in 6 innings, that's more than enough to pay off 5,500. So it's tempting. I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but the price tag is enough to make you think about it. I mean, I played Joe Ross on Monday night. That didn't work out well. He left with an injury, but it's the price tag where you don't need a ton for that price. Like, you'd be thrilled with 15 DraftKings points for 5,500. Griffin Canning can get there. It's not a good matchup by any means, but the price tag makes you think.
Yeah. I don't think you could play Canning a lot. Like, if you're playing 150 and you're like, hey, I'm just going to play him to try to get 15 points out of him to get one of these like top end stacks and still get a good pitcher, sure. He's been really bad this year. This team's really good. They do have days where they just don't show up to the ballpark, and they are like, you can maybe get them on that day. But yeah, I mean, overall, we have a lot more interest in the Houston bats. It's just the price for Canning more than anything else. It's the price, 5,500, where we were like, is there a pitcher under 7K, 8K that we want to play? Christian Javier, other side of this game, 8,600 for Javier. Decent matchup against the Angels. Any interest here for Javier?
Yeah, I just don't know what to do with this guy. Like, the strikeouts have been disappearing for the entire season. He got a great matchup against Oakland and was dominant his last time out. It's a similar matchup to that in this spot against the Angels. The Angels have been just atrocious against right-handed pitching. I actually played a little bit of them on Monday night against Framber just because Framber was chalky, and they've been way better against lefties. There's no chance I'm playing any Angels bats. Is Javier going to deliver strikeouts is my only question here. Like, he's changed his pitch mix. Like, he's throwing his changeup a lot more. I don't know what to do with Christian Javier is my conundrum here, basically. I think the price tag is fine. I think it's a great matchup. I just don't know who Christian Javier is at this point. I'll probably have some at 8,600.
I don't think Christian Javier knows who Christian Javier is at this point.
Fair.
We did a deep dive on him. I did a solo show his last start, and like went through Baseball Savant and like showed off my process of doing like a dive on a pitcher, and like it just like nothing standing out on why he's been so bad. Like nothing, and then like he went out and had 8 strikeouts. So I worry a little bit about like his swing and miss stuff against lefties. So like I want to see the lineup. I think that's how you gotta approach Javier today. If there's like 5 or 6 lefties in this lineup, even though they're not going to be like the best lefties in the world, I mean, you might get off of Javier. If there's 6 or 7 righties in this lineup today, I think you might get on Christian Javier. So I think it's going to come down to lineup, because like his splits are really extreme this year. They were pretty extreme last year as well, but his splits are very, very extreme this year. So it'd be a lineup thing for me on Christian Javier. I definitely have interest in Willie Calhoun. I've talked about this guy a ton since he's come back. I hate the fact that you got to play him at first base now on DraftKings, but there are like 3 or 4 catchers on this slate that are expensive that are just phenomenal. So it might be a day where I pay down at first base and try to get like an expensive catcher. So like maybe I do like Willie Calhoun at first base today, but I want to attack Christian Javier with lefties, and Willie Calhoun has just been really good since landing in this lineup. He obviously has something to prove, and he's proving it. He's hitting really, really well right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're just chasing home runs here against Javier. I like the Willie Calhoun call quite a bit. Just like Rengifo hasn't been that good against righties. He's definitely better from the other side of the plate. Shanwell is the other lefty I think that you look to, even though he hasn't been that solid this year either. I'm not sure even what other lefties they have, to be honest with you. I don't think you're going to see a ton of lefties in here.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Chasing a home run with Calhoun or Shanwell, I'm fine with that.
The other lefty that should be in the lineup is Mickey Moniak at 2,900. So, cheap outfielder that has some pop. I know, like he's off to a pretty slow start this year, but he has a really sweet swing, and he's going to eventually get it going. So I don't mind him in this spot against Javier if they hit him up towards the top of the order. There's somebody else that I can't think of right now. Cole Tucker.
Cole Tucker, yeah, that's who they just
he's
called
the
up.
other. Yeah, he's the other guy that they've been hitting up towards the top of the order sometimes against right-handed pitching. Like, you could make a pretty cheap 3-man lefty stack here with these like 3 or 4 lefties towards the top of the order. I wouldn't go more than like a 2 or 3 man with the Angels, though. I just don't know if they have like, saying this after they just scored a double-digit runs on Monday night, but they definitely have more upside against left-handed pitching than they do against right-handed pitching. But I think it's more of like a 3-man type of stack here at most. Houston, I mean, it's really hard not to have interest in the Houston bats. Like Canning, I know he pitched decent last time out. He's had a couple decent starts, but his strikeout rate is way down. The stuff just doesn't look sharp. Houston's one of the best offenses in baseball. One of the reasons that I'm like, I don't know if we could get those 15 points out of Canning is just like, this is a really good spot for Houston bats.
Yeah, they're one of the better offenses in baseball. Kyle Tucker has been outstanding this year. Altuve's been good. Alvarez has taken a step back, but I don't buy that for a second. I still think he's a top 3 hitter in baseball. He's down to 5,300 as well. He's been under 4K on FanDuel as well, which is just, it's way too cheap for this guy's talent level. Jordan is going to be one of my favorite hitters on the slate again, as he was on Monday night. Bregman's turning it on. I definitely prefer Pena against lefties. Same with Diaz, but they're totally fine. Pena still has some stolen base upside. Singleton's been really good for this team. He's still only 3,500, so just a value bat that you can get in there that helps you get up to some of those studs. But yeah, I like Houston a good amount here. Even if I throw some darts at Canning, it's just because of the price tag. I'd much rather play Houston bats than Canning.
It'd be interesting to see the ownership of the Dodgers, the Astros, and Baltimore with this Atlanta-Chicago game. With the pitching, like not having a ton of cheap pitching either. All right, let's talk about this game because this game is super interesting. It's Colorado at Oakland. These two offenses facing off against each other. 8 total. Oakland's a 130 favorite. We got Cal Quantrill against Aaron Brooks. For some reason, these two guys are 2 major league pitchers in 2024. Cal Quantrill has been okay his last few starts. He's like this magician that like can generate ground balls and soft contact. And what are we doing with him at 6K today? Like we talked about getting 15 from Canning. Do you think we could potentially get 15 from Cal Quantrill today?
I mean, I don't think it's out of the question. It is like the biggest ballpark upgrade you could possibly have, going from Coors to the Oakland Coliseum. He's so BABIP dependent. Like the strikeouts have actually been okay the last couple, which I don't know where this has come from. Even when he was with Cleveland, Quantrill was a way below average strikeout guy. So to see him even 5 strikeouts in 6 innings is like out of the norm for him. I have no idea where the 9 strikeout game came from. I don't expect to ever see that again from him in his entire career, but it's on the game log. We got to acknowledge it. I don't think it's crazy. We talked about how it's a weak pitching slate. So I think I would rather take shots on Canning just because I believe he's a much more talented pitcher, even though the matchup is way worse for Canning than it is for Quantrill. Oakland, like they're going to strike out some, but I don't expect Quantrill to continue the strikeouts that he's gotten the last couple 3 starts here. So I don't. If you think he can get 4 or 5 strikeouts and go 6 or 7 innings, like yeah, he can get you 15 points. But I don't know. I can count on one hand the number of times I've played Cal Quantrill in DFS. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I will say, I don't think Cal Quantrill is a good pitcher by any means. I stack against him a lot. I'll probably have some Oakland bats today too, but I might play a little bit. It might be one of those like DFS spots where I play both sides of this spot. Aaron Brooks, and okay, really quick before we move on to Aaron Brooks, Cal Quantrill is going to go 90 plus pitches, whether he's pitching good or bad. So the floor of the pitches is always nice because you know what you're getting out of Cal Quantrill. When he's getting shelled, they're still going to let him go out there and throw 90 pitches. So, I mean, I like that aspect of trying to get to that 15-point number. I don't think he has 35 fantasy points in him ever again. That might be the last time he scores 35 fantasy points in his career. Aaron Brooks, not good. Journeyman, KBO, Major League Baseball, KBO. Don't know how, but he's back and he's pitching for Oakland because they don't have anybody. He threw 7 innings the other night against Houston. Yeah, I don't know if I'd say dominated. Let's use that term a little bit. Are we playing any Aaron Brooks against one of the worst offenses in baseball and trying to get to that 15 to 18-point number here?
I think I would play Quantrill over Brooks. I think I prefer Canning over both of them. It's like the nature of the slate. It's a conversation worth having, though. Like, especially given what he just did to Houston his last time out in Houston. It's not like this game was in Oakland and a bunch of balls died on the warning track. This was a game in Houston against one of baseball's best offenses, and he was really solid. 7 innings, 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, 3 runs. Like, if I could repeat that performance here today, I'd play him. I don't know that he can. Like, he wasn't even a huge strikeout guy over in Korea, so I don't know. It's disgusting that we are even talking about it, but flip a coin between Brooks, Quantrill, and Canning, and maybe you get lucky, but with one of them. I think I'll probably take a stand. Like, I'll just play one of them 10% or 12% in my portfolio of lineups and call it a day. I think it's Canning at this point, but certainly all 3 of them are worth considering.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't even like BABIP them or anything. Like, he had a 3.75 xFIP against Houston. Like, I mean, he used his pitches well. Like, he mixed his pitches up through a lot of changeups, through a lot of sliders, through a lot of fastballs. Like, kept hitters off balance against Houston. Like, this is just one of those games where you could realistically play either pitcher or any of the bats on either side. And that's what makes this game so fun. But Gergen chat said, if this game was in Coors, it would be massive chalk. I mean, he's not wrong.
Agree.
Like,
yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. But like Keith said, I mean, one of the biggest ballpark shifts you can get is Coors to Oakland. It suppresses strikeouts, and it generates a little bit more outs for the pitchers because of the huge foul ball territory. But I mean, we're not really playing these guys for strikeouts. We're playing these guys to get like 6 or 7 innings and try not to give up more than like 2 runs. So get a few Ks on the way. Let's talk about Colorado. I mean, just not a good offense, man. Ryan McMahon, I think, has to be at the top of the board when you're looking at the Rockies. Outside of that, I mean, Charlie Blackmon's 4K. We're still getting a lot of cheap Colorado bats here. If you want to go down that route, Hunter Goodman at catcher has a little bit of pop. We're waiting for it to show up in the majors still, but he is getting a pretty good matchup here against Brooks. Any interest here in the Colorado bats?
Yeah, I mean, Brooks' last start against Houston was easily my highest on offense. So I have no problem trying to attack Brooks. It's just who do we look at in this lineup is the biggest problem. I agree, McMahon is my favorite. Blackmon is definitely second. Probably go Tovar after that. Like, big ballpark downgrade, but I don't personally think Aaron Brooks is any good. So because of the ballpark, it's probably more of a mini stack for me, but I'm certainly okay with the matchup.
Oakland bats. I mean, it's the same guys we've been playing, right? Roker, Langoliers, Blade, McCann's a cheap catcher. Seth Brown's really cheap. He hasn't been hitting very well, but we know he has power. It's the same guys. I mean, you want to attack Cal Quantrill with some power. Just again, I think you play both sides of this, and I hate saying that, but like I really think you can play both sides on either side of this game. It has an 8 total because both these offenses stink.
Yeah, certainly true. And the ballpark is a factor in that as well. But I have more interest in the Oakland side here than I do in the Colorado side. I don't know if Quantrill or Brooks is better, but I think the Oakland offense is better than the Colorado offense, especially when the Rockies are away from Coors. So I will full stack Oakland a couple of times here at least. Rooker and Langoliers are clearly my favorite. Bleday is coming on a little bit. I certainly don't mind him at all. If Toro's up near the top of the lineup, he's fine. If Soderstrom's in there, I certainly like him. He's still cheap. Also has first base eligibility, so you can play him at catcher or first if you want Langoliers in there as well. I have quite a bit of interest in this Oakland stack, actually.
All right, we finished it out. Going back to LA, take on the Dodgers. Arizona, 8.5 total. Dodgers a 168 favorite. Fayat against Stone. Any interest here in Mr. Brandon Fayat?
Not against the Dodgers. He is cheap, but I don't think that we need to play him. I don't know. 7,100 is a little bit tempting, I suppose. We've talked about several gross pitchers on this slate. I don't play pitchers against the Dodgers generally. I think Fott's a at least average pitcher at this point, but it's a matchup against the Dodgers. I'm out.
Yeah, low walk rate. I mean, he's not terrible, but this is just one of the, if not the best offense in baseball. I mean, where's the weak spot? There just really isn't one. This lineup is top to bottom. Like you don't get it. You don't get a breather. We used to call it like getting a breather when you're pitching, and you get to down to like the 6, 7, 8, 9 hitters, and you'd be like, all right, that was tough getting through those first 4 or 5 guys, and now I can kind of just locate and get ahead and stuff. And there's just none of that like in this lineup. So Jason Hayward's back, which gives them another lefty. Just I mean, it's just there's no weak spot in this lineup. I kind of have some slight interest in Gavin Stone today, just because we don't have like a ton of options in this range, and I do think like this is an offense that has struggled this season. My biggest problem with Gavin Stone is he's not a big strikeout guy, so he has to do it by just limiting damage. I think I'd rather pay up and just take some shots on the expensive guys. Like if Gavin Stone had a little bit more strikeout upside, I'd be like, all right, maybe he's a pivot off of Schmidt. But I see Schmidt outscoring him like 9 out of 10 times. So I just land on Schmidt every single time because of the strikeouts for Seattle. I don't think Gavin Stone's a bad pitcher. He's done a great job limiting damage this year. It's just, does he have enough upside at 7,900?
Yeah, the upside is what concerns me as well. Like you said, Arizona's been really bad this season on offense, especially against. They've been outstanding against lefties. They've been awful against righties. They don't strike out against either one, though, is the problem. So I'm with you. I'm struggling to find the upside here for Gavin Stone. It's a difficult strikeout matchup, and he's not a big strikeout guy anyway. So I don't think I'm playing Gavin Stone. The Diamondbacks are just not a team I like to pick on because they make a ton of contact.
I'm not going out of my way to play Arizona bats. I mean, Carroll and Peterson, Marte, like top half of this lineup, if you want to take some shots there and just chase the home run. Jock has to be excited to be back in LA facing the Dodgers. But I mean, Gavin Stone's not a huge strikeout guy, but he's also done a great job of limiting barrels and hard contact and like giving up a ton of home runs. So like, it's really hard for me to get excited about playing Arizona today when we have like 4 or 5 really stout offenses today. And like Arizona's not necessarily like this, bottom of the barrel type of stack. I mean, the guys you want to play, Marte's 53, Peterson's now at 44, Carroll's at 47, Walker's 49. Like it's not a cheaper stack. You still got to pay up for them.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest in the Arizona stack. I do like the Jock call a ton. Like a 4,400 is a very fair price for him in this spot. I don't have much interest outside of that. They've been really bad against righties. If Carroll was right, I would have a ton of interest in in him at 4,700, but I need to see a little bit more out of Corbin Carroll. I know they've got him back up to the top of the lineup. He's been better than he was to start the season, but still not what he was last year. So still waiting on it a little bit for Corbin Carroll.
Dodgers bats. I mean, stack them up again, right? Just keep stacking them.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fott's a good pitcher, but the Dodgers are better. There's no doubt about that. Like you can just play them every time they're on the slate. They're expensive. There's not a ton of great cheap pitching options on this slate, so it's going to be difficult to fit them in. But I think you need to find a way to make it work at least a couple of times. So I prefer lefties against Fott. I'll say that. Ohtani would be my favorite option here. Freeman is right there. Hayward is still really cheap. Definitely don't mind him. I think I've given up on Gavin Lux at this point as far as lefties goes, so wouldn't mind seeing him out of the lineup again. I'd rather play Rojas over Lux at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to play either one of them.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, play those cheap Angels bets. All right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we'll get out of here. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with us. Under 8K to get 6 or more strikeouts.
I will go Alec Marsh here.
Yeah, might be the only option.
Might be the only one.
I honestly don't think any of these guys get more than 6 strikeouts. If I had to pick someone, I'd say Mize, but I don't feel good about it. I know the talent Mize has. He just hasn't shown it yet. Over 8K to score under 15. Who's your bust today?
It pains me to say it because I really like this pitcher, but this is a tough spot for Brian Wu going into Yankee Stadium. 8,500. I will not have any Wu today.
Surprise you gave me the layup, but I'll take it. Give me Charlie Morton as my bust today. Thank you, Keith. Over 4K to hit a home run. Who's going yard today?
Give me Matt Olson in that Wrigley win. It's a great spot for him. He's going to get right this season. So love Olson here today.
Yeah, I'm going to go to a catcher. I do not like paying up a catcher, but it's really hard not to talk about how good this guy's been lately. Give me Adley Rutschman against Lance Lynn. Just what a spot. This is, I was looking at the weather. This is the best hitting conditions outside of Wrigley today. It's going to be 92 degrees. It's going to be hot. Good hitting conditions today in St. Louis. Give me Rutschman. Under 4K to get 2 hits. Who's a cheap bat that you like today?
Expect Dansby Swanson to be back in the lineup. 2,800. He hasn't been fantastic this season, but he's a better hitter than 2,800. That's for sure. I'm not scared of Charlie Morton.
I like it. I'm going to go to my boy, Willie Calhoun. He's cheap. I like this spot for him. We talked about how Christian Javier has really struggled with left-handed pitching this season. So give me my boy, Willie Calhoun. Stack to score 6 or more runs. Who do you got today?
I'm going to go the Baltimore Orioles against Lance Lynn. Love this spot for Baltimore.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Keith. Really good idea. I like that one. I'm gonna go Cubbies. I think Atlanta is gonna be really popular, but give me the Cubs. Hopefully they're the lower owned stack here. Love this spot. Good hitting conditions in this one. So give me the Cubs. Any player picks or player props, not picks, player props or pick and plays that you like on the slate?
So there's actually a fair amount posted up at this point. There's a lot of 640 games that aren't on the slate today. But I was looking over those. There's not a ton that I'm liking. Games that we didn't break down here on the podcast, but lots of other options that are already up. I'm interested in Cal Quantrill at 16.5 outs. The ballpark upgrade, out to Oakland, as good as he's been his last 3 starts, I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to officially bet that, but Cal Quantrill over 16.5, I'm interested in. I don't know. No strikeout props are really jumping out to me at this point. I'll dig a little deeper tonight, but I don't have an official play at this point, I don't think.
The one that I want to see, it's not up yet. I want to see if Kikuchi comes in at like 5.5 strikeouts. That's what he's come in at a lot of times this year. I'm really interested to see what his strikeout prop is, and I'm really interested to see what Clark Schmidt's strikeout prop is. Those are two that I'll be looking at. I mean, nothing else like jumping off to me, like off the board. Any lines, any money line against the spread, anything like that you like here?
Nothing there jumping out either. The Wrigley one was the total was something I considered. I'll probably wait and see what the weather looks like a little bit closer to game time on that. Maybe I miss a half a run by waiting. But if Roth is super excited about it in the morning, then maybe I jump on the over in the Wrigley game. I didn't see any money lines that really stuck out. So unfortunately, I'm kind of dry on the bets tonight.
Hey, I'd rather you be dry than give out something you don't like, and I think everyone appreciates that too. So I like Baltimore over 4.5 total runs in this one. This is a spot that I absolutely love. Baltimore. We talked about the hitting conditions, and this game has great hitting environment as far as the weather. So really like this spot against Lance Lynn. They're going to have plenty of lefties to go up against Lance Lynn. So Baltimore over 4.5 runs. You can get this right now on Bet Rivers at -113. And if you're in Florida, you can get it on the Hard Rock at -115 because that's what I just bet it at. So yeah, Baltimore over 4.5 is what I like here. That's going to wrap it up for Tuesday. We're back on Wednesday. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button over there on the RotoGrinders Morning Grind YouTube page. We appreciate all the kind words, and we'll see you again tomorrow.